know that you aced that quizzes. Now let's get into the criteria for success as we get ready to closely read America by Claude McKay. Okay? So, for this activity, make sure you have your handout up. You should have done this from the first beginning of the lesson, but it's going to be right. Um, if you're on the Monday, you're past your checkup, and it's America close read, and it says must do. But remember, all the items are a must do. You can't get to one without doing the other. It's going to be in my documents. You're going to click on it, and I've already have it up here. So let's get started. Let's get this party started. All right. So criteria for success for today. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to read the poem. We're not going to stop. We're not going to highlight yet. Right now, we're just going to read the poem straight through. Okay? After we read it, we're going to reread the poem. We're going to do a second look at it. Okay? And with this time, we're going to highlight in any figurative language we see. Remember, that's the similes, the metaphors, the personification. That's what we have been talking about. That's what we're looking for. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to identify the figurative language, which one it is. Is it a simile? Is it a metaphor? Is it personification? I don't know. What is it? You're going to identify it, write it under the figurative language column. Let's go to our handout. So you see, this is the poem on one side. Looks just like, very similar to the one for the text that we've been reading, the memoirs that we've been reading. Except it has an additional column where we're going to identify what figurative language is in each chunk of the poem, okay? Or stanzas. These are stanzas. Then we're going to analyze, write an analysis, write a two-sentence analysis. What do we need to write? What is the author trying to say with using the figurative language? What does that mean? We know that figurative language is not a literal. We're not taking the word or phrase literally. So what is the author, Claude McKay, literally trying to tell us based on what he figuratively said, right? It's a little bit confusing, but we'll get through it, okay? Now, there are going to be a couple of words that you may or may not have heard of before. So we're just going to go over briefly what those words are. Malice. Malice is the intention or desire to do evil or cause harm to others. Okay, so people do things that with malice. Think about some of your favorite super villains or villains in Marvel superhero. They do things evil that cause harm to others. They do it with the intention. They want to be bad. They want to do things evil in the world. They do those things with malice. Okay? Jur. Jur is a root of mocking remark. Sometimes you may, you be a jur or be considered jur when you say something that's petty. Like when we say petty things, sometimes they come off as rude or seem like we're mocking what somebody else said, and we do so in being petty. So think of jur as being petty. They're very synonymous, meaning that they are similar in the way that you respond. So we're going to see the word malice and we're going to see the word jur. Without further ado, let's get into it. Let's read with complete understanding because we're going to read it closely. All right. So, first thing first, read the poem in its entirety. America by Claude McKay. Although she feeds me bread of bitterness and skins into my throat her tiger's tooth, still in my breath of life I will confess I love this cultured hell that tests my youth. Her vigor flows like tides into my blood, giving me strength erect against her hate. Her bigness sweep my being like a flood, Yet as a rebel fronts a king and state, I stand within her walls with not a shred of terror, malice, not a word of jeer. Darkly I gaze into the days ahead and see her might and granite wonders there. Beneath the touch of time's unerring hand, like priceless treasures sinking in the sand. America by Claude McKay. Read by Mrs. McCoy. All right, so I know that you're like, Miss, what in the world did you just read? What am I reading? And poetry can be, there's some deep meanings always behind it. So that I promise you, you may even feel similarly to the way Claude McKay's felt once we dig into what he's actually trying to tell us. All right, so we're going to second criteria for success. We're going to reread the poem in chunks and highlight the figurative language. Although she feeds me bread of bitterness and sinks into my throat her tiger's tooth, still in my breath of life, I will confess I love this cultured hell that tests my youth. All right, so the first thing first I have to see is what can be considered figurative language. Now, I see right away that although she feeds me bread of bitterness, the poem is called America. So the she, I can infer that Claude McKay is calling America a female by saying using the she. Uh, and so I'm going to highlight this because that we know that personification, let's go back to that slide, is giving human characteristics to a non-human thing. America is not human. America is a place, so it's not human. But Claude McKay in this sentence made America a female or said it was similar to a female. Okay, so we're going to highlight this in orange. Go to highlight color, and then we're going to look for orange, and bam, we just highlighted it for personification. There's also, I see, and sinks into my throat her tiger's tooth. So not only did Claude McKay say that she is a she, that America is a she, it also he also says that she's a tiger. So she's a female, a feline, a female tiger. Okay. So she said, does America have tiger teeth? Do you see teeth on America some type of way where it can actually bite, sink into your throat? No. That is again personification. So I'm going to highlight that in orange. And then under here, say, stealing my breath of life. I don't see anything else that can qualify as figurative language. This is some literal stuff. I'm going to, oh, no, before I go, I'm sorry, that is not literal. Stealing my breath of life. America cannot literally steal, your breath. It can't. It's not human. So there's, again, another humanistic quality Claude McKay gives to America. So again, we're going to highlight in orange, still in my breath of life. I will confess I love this cultured hell that tests my youth. Now that is something that we can say is literal. But three lines above it was definitely something that was we're not going to take literally. Orange is personification. We've already read, we went back and read and said that personification is giving human characteristics to non-human things. Now you won't have this particular slide, but you can always pause the video, or you should have your poetry notebook up and you can refer back to your poetry notebook. Okay. We're going to put personification as the figurative language under the figurative language column. And then we're going to analyze what could Mr. McKay actually be talking about. What is he talking about? She feeds me bread of bitterness. I mean, what is really going on? So I'm gonna say, okay, in this little chunk of the text, McKay, uh, not McCoy, uses personification. We already see that it's personification in this stanza to show us the mixed emotions that he feels toward America. Let's put that's proper now. Okay. He states, and I would even go over here and said, she feeds me bread of bitterness. I'm going to put all of this stuff, the things that I highlighted. I'm going to paste it over here. I'm going to take away the highlight, but you can keep it if you like. When we analyze, we typically use uh, words or phrases directly from the text. So McKay uses or states, she feeds me bread of bitterness and sinks into my throat her tiger's tooth, still in my breath of life, to show that although America uh, feeds him, his life is also sucked out of him because of the injustices he face, faces in America. Like, Miss, how did you get all of that? Although she feeds me breads of bitterness. Remember, this is Claude McKay in the 1920s. This is Black America today, if we're honest. But in maybe not even Black and Brown America today, if we're honest. But in the 1920s and before then, and for a long time, and still going on in America, America seemed to Black and brown people have been faced with injustice, but in this case, Black people were faced with injustices. And so, even though America gives him life, for instance, he's here because he's his family migrated. Remember, he's Jamaican American. His family migrated to America, and what have you. And even though she gives him life, she also sucks the life out of him. So feeds me bread of bitterness. She still feed America still feeds him, but then he also bites into him, suck the life up out of him. So this is what he's saying in this stanza, and it's like, and as we move along, we'll figure out a little bit more about what he's trying to say. Okay, so next stanza. Her vigor flows like tides into my blood, giving me strength erect against her hate. Her bigness sweeps my being like a flood, yet as a rebel fronts a king and state. I stand within her walls with not a shred. Okay, so first thing first, we need to figure out what figurative language device is in this stanza. Her vigor flows like tides into my blood. I look at that and I see like, and I can recall, let's go back to my little slide, that when you use the word like or as to compare two things, it's called a simile. So I go back to her vigor flows like tides into my blood, and I know that it's a simile. Right now, Claude McKay is using a simile, giving me strength erect against her hate. Her bigness sweeps my being like a flood, yet as a rebel fronts a king and state. Okay, so what we see here is that Claude is comparing America's vigor to the ties in his blood, that gives him strength. And we also see that he's comparing America's bigness sweeps his bigness that sweeps his being like a flood, like a flood. Yet as a rebel fronts a king and state. So what we're going to do is highlight this, and we know that yellow is for simile. We're going to go to our highlighting tool. We're going to click highlight, and then we're going to go to our figurative language column, and we're going to write simile. Okay? The very next thing we're going to do is we're going to write an analysis of this particular portion of the poem. Okay? So the stanza. Oh, I see I did that. McKay uses a simile. Remember, this is how we're analyzing it. And this stanza to show us an extension of his mixed emotions he has toward America. So stanza is carrying on from the first stanza. He's still talking about his mixed emotions that he has. He's using the simile this time to show us that, even it's her vigor flows like tides into my blood, like tides into my blood, giving me strength erect against her hate. So the vigor that America gives him, it's giving him strength, but he's still hateful towards it. So it's mixed emotions. He doesn't know, how to feel. He knows how to feel, but he doesn't know how to feel. And you guys probably get it because, at this age, I can recall being mixed up about how I felt about certain things. And so I can recall reading one of you guys' responses, and you're like, I feel like we can be a part of a community or still, and even though they fear us, and then you said at the same time, but really not really. And so this is really what's going on in Claude McKay's mind. He's like, I love America, but I hate America. And this is how he's giving us a vivid picture of how he's feeling about America. Okay? He states, he states, and remember, we're just going to go right on over here and copy what we have here. Paste it. I'm going to take away the highlight, but you again do not have to. It's her hate, to show us that he uses the strength America has to combat the hate he experiences within her borders. We're going to put quotations, her borders. So he's using all of the hate that America's giving him to give him strength. And it's like that saying, what doesn't kill me make me stronger, is a way of actually saying that. All the bad energy that they give you, you take that and you build on that. I know you've heard some maybe you've heard some type of variation of that saying, but that's exactly what Claude McKay is saying when about America in this stanza. The last one, of terror, malice, not a word of jeer. Darkly I gaze into the days ahead and see her might and granted wonders there beneath the touch of time's unerring hand, like priceless treasures sinking in the sand. I'm going to let you guys take a stab at it. Do you see a simile? Do you see a metaphor? Do you see personification? Highlight whatever you see, write it under figurative language, and then write your two-sentence analysis on what the stanzas is actually talking about. Okay? So, next steps. You're going to complete the Close Read of America. You're going to do the exit ticket, which is directly under, taking you to it, which is directly under the America Close Read. The exit ticket is two questions about the poem. Then once you complete that, check your email if you haven't already. You should have received an email from me asking you to download or to log into the Live School app. If you don't have a phone, you can definitely do it online. The information is in the email. Register, and so that way you can start keeping track of your funny money points. And so, and you can see the different prizes that we have available, that I have available for you to win as you get your funny money points up. Okay, and after that, have a marvelous Monday. I hope to see you guys tomorrow. Have a great day.